So this is either going to be the shortest conversation we ever had, or we're going to free dive into this and have some fun. I'm going to start with just what the veil is, because there's going to be some people out there who've not heard the term and others who have, but haven't really contemplated the matter much. So what I myself would say about the veil is that it's one, specifically a 3D phenomena. 1D and 2D are not veiled. The galactics are not veiled. So this is specific to 3D. And the veil itself could be described as a semi-permeable membrane that screens or shades the mind from itself. The veil then rests between what is now separated, the unconscious and the conscious mind, the surface mind and deeper mind. So the veil creates the known and the unknown. It creates consciousness states such as wake and dream. The veil creates polarity, the positive and the negative, the choice of love and fear. The veil creates complexity out of what was previously simple or singular. The veil is also a tool that has been utilized to help extend free will. A lot of people have trouble with the veil, with why we were with why consciousness screened itself, because they take it personally. And often there's the tendency to start thinking things like someone else did something to us, locked us in here. We're now in a quote prison planet, things like this. And so this is why I really wanted to bring the conversation of the veil and its purpose to the page.
I've been in those states of the victim space. So like it's there, it's noticeable, it's detectable, right? The here and there.
Mhm.
And the in between, and I've definitely dabbled in that space. And then so the question would always come like, why? Why would anything or anyone want to veil, a portion of consciousness or manifested
Mhm.
world, right? And as I would like to think as I've evolved myself that my realization was much along those lines that it's a tool to help extend free will, although you're taking it into a different direction than I was seeing it. And for me it was, why would that have been? It's like there's a level of negligence, of ignorance that we have that almost requires the veil until we can come into the full power of our gifts or our abilities or ourselves, right? The true nature of ourselves. And it's like, I like to equate it with like a 4-year-old with a steak knife running around. It's like, well, if you don't know how to use it, if you don't know what to do with it, it could be quite dangerous to have that ability to shift in between.
Now I
To,
have a little bit of a different take on that, because I would say that the veil came first. And prior to the veil, mm, you're already in the state of knowing. This gets into a whole nother subject of what the purpose of manifest
reality is, right?
reality is, even in the first place. So I never had an answer for that, actually, before I found the raw material, the law of one.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Because I came in myself so seemingly neutral,
Mhm.
that I did not see the idea of polarity or the necessity to polarize. I couldn't see that. It was in reading that material that I began to see, okay, well, that fits in with then how one would graduate dimensions, manifest dimensions as well. So if the purpose of manifestation is to polarize, meaning to play a part,
Mhm. Yeah.
put on your hat, choose a role, and then grow, graduate, advance yourself through that, you know, meaning either positive or negative, then the purpose of the veil would be to get or incentivize incarnates to polarize. Because without the veil, what incentive is there? Everything's already there for you. You rest in a certain contentment that just doesn't seem to allow you to get up the energy to, choose a polarity and then actualize it through your life experience to the point where you can actually graduate back in toward the one.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then of course, the veil came first. Higher beings may have been seeing that those without the veil were not moving. They weren't growing. They weren't graduating. They were just stagnant. And so inserting the veil in place would give them that incentive because now they don't know. They don't know anything. They have to figure it out. When you don't know, that's when you have choice. That's when free will comes into the equation more firmly,
Mm.
right? Because if you do know, of course, there's freedom, but not free will. Free will is a different thing altogether.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. That is, it's like free will isn't actually guaranteed. A teacher of mine says this, like it's not guaranteed, but you earn it by using it intentionally and with awareness. So in my own development, I feel like I've only arrived at the point of awareness of
Mm,
like you need to be conscious and aware and intentional in order so that this creation, right? Like you can't be negligent with it. And so the development of awareness for me comes in first.
mhm.
And then you're like, oh, then there's polarity, then there's, and it's so interesting because it's like a step, right? And so once I moved out of the victimization place, it's like, oh, this is entirely up to me. And because frequency doesn't lie, you're either going to match it, right? And therefore be able to like penetrate it or be one with it, really harmonizing with something is becoming it, right? In that same frequency.
Yeah.
And then like when it bleeds through, it's like, what's happening with me? What is occurring? What state am I in that space? Yeah.
Focus always has to reel in any spiritual practice or discipline. Anytime you want to advance yourself,
It loves it. It just loves it. It's like, yes.
I know. Anytime you want to advance yourself, you have to reel the attention in on yourself.
Mhm.
To find the truth, you have to find what is fundamental. And we ourselves are what is fundamental to the experience we are having. And so, reeling the attention in on the self and learning through practices like meditation, focusing the attention, contemplation, things like this will begin to break you in on fundamental reality.
Mhm.
And you're not as apt to then go astray into incorrect thoughts based on the choice of fear that you didn't even realize you made because you didn't even bring the attention in on yourself to the point where you could begin to see that you yourself are the one who is making choices that result in the life experience that unfolds. And so it's not ever anyone outside the self that is doing anything to the self. Again, the self, the one, consciousness itself is all there is. And you begin to see this, when you begin to learn to focus the attention, and focusing the attention specifically on oneself, then it all begins to be seen.
I believe what you just said right now, the incorrect thoughts, even that's advanced work. That's like middle stage work. Just the thoughts, like the runaway thoughts, like how busy the mind can be with just catching yourself like this is, a runaway train in here.
Mm,
As a creator being, I was actually manifesting all of that. It would be a system of pandemonium. Like there was just complete and utter chaos. So,
yes.
the organization through polarization, through choice, that's advanced work. It's like first you got to even realize that there's runaway train thoughts going in all directions and like we don't even have control over it until you bring attention to it.
Mhm.
Therefore, the veil. This is why for me, it was like, oh, because one could be quite negligent with the mind power.
Not without the veil. Because
Uh,
without the veil, you're already in the state of knowing. There's not the separation between the conscious and the unconscious mind the way there is with the veil. So you simply have access to the dimensions in a different way than what we do.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, here we don't even realize there is anything beyond ourself to reconnect with, right?
Well, most people don't. Yeah, I would say. Yeah. That being the setup with the veil.
So it's not like we've done something incorrect and the veil was put in place to recorrect us. I think that it's more that without the veil, we don't have the impetus to polarize and grow and advance and graduate ourselves. So I think it's more along this line, but I can see where you're going. Do you want to take that further?
I don't know how much further I can take it in that space. So just my own contemplation of why would it be there if it wasn't a victimization experience.
Okay, well, let's go into the consciousness states. The veil creates consciousness states such as wake and dream. So let's say it right off the cuff. There wouldn't even be such a thing as the out of body experience if the veil wasn't in place. We wouldn't have the joy of remembering the rest of ourselves. And it is an extraordinary experience. It's a ride. It's a phenomenal ride. I wouldn't give it up for anything. The veil is not an evil thing. It wasn't anything that was done to any of us. It's something that consciousness or mind placed upon itself. The one is all there is to any one of us. If we can just get to the remembering of that, we'll sort of get into that a little bit later. Or even if you can entertain the idea, are you willing to entertain the idea that there's a oneness, a singularity behind the multiplicity, behind the many? If you're willing to contemplate that idea and go into it some, you'll begin to have an experience of that. And the experience of that will be different. There'll be a differential between that and what you more normally do. And that will give you information that will be exciting too, probably. It was for me. You know,
In the state that one would know as, like for example, you've always stated the position, the wakened state, and the dream state on the same playing field. So I've been toying with that,
mm,
but we're still feel like we're anchored in the awakened state, right? In the wake state. Like that's still station one or central station, if you will. And so we gather information from dream state or sleep state to bring it in here. Something has to confirm. There has to be some sort of confirmation that connects these two states, so they're working together,
it's
even with
communication.
a veil in between.
Yeah, without the veil, it's a singularity.
Yeah.
So again, the veil takes what was singular or simple and makes it complex. It makes it multidimensional. So we wouldn't even have the dimensional existence in which we find ourselves right now without the veil at some point. It doesn't come in at the beginning. Let me not give that idea. Again, it's specifically a 3D phenomena. And again, I feel that's to get us to polarize, to choose, to make choices, and to learn and grow through those choices. Otherwise, there's just not the incentive. Again, think of a teenager who lives at home, and regardless of whether he studies or makes good grades, he's still housed and he's still fed, and he still has, essentially what he wants. He or she. Let me not be biased there. There's not the incentive to get up and do something, and this is what it's like for most people most of the time. We get complacent.
Mhm.
Yeah, things aren't really bad, so we allow them just to be how they are, and then even convince ourselves this is just how it is.
Adversity to awakening. That's why I was like, if there's not a tension
Mhm.
trigger, right, there's no evolution or expansion or the possibility of it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, I think it's to light a fire under us, again, to get us to polarize. Now, there could be other concepts or other reasons out there. I don't know. I haven't come up with them. That was the first one I heard, and the only one I've ever heard actually that makes sense to me. I can see we're because it's very clear we're in a duality system here in 3D or space. Yes, there's up and down, right and
Yeah.
wrong, good or bad, male or female. It's a duality system. So of course there's positive and negative, not in the way that most people think, I feel, but positive and negative, more like the positive and negative charge on a battery.
Mhm.
Without the positive, the battery can't do anything. Without the negative charge, the battery can't do anything. It's the torque between the two that creates the energy that allows us to spring to life and make choices and again, polarize in a way that allows us to grow and graduate ourselves through the dimensions back in toward the one. That's what the one is doing through all of us.
Well, and I think the interesting thing is that sometimes it's literally a bleeding through of the veil that actually creates that tension trigger. Like it may not be necessarily created by an event in someone's life. Like I've had that, like just everything falling apart. But sometimes it's just a flicker of
Mm.
the something other in the same space of wake space that it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? What was that?
Exactly. And that's what gets us to, and we're going to end on this note, but that's what gets us to begin to penetrate the veil. Yes, which
Mhm.
again is a super fun experience and it contains things like the out of body experience and other things like this, right? Phenomena beyond the 3D norm beginning to happen in our everyday life experience, right through the center of ourselves, even sometimes, visually as new visual presentations begin to appear. But let's go ahead and end on that one. Again, I feel it's that we polarized to a certain degree that allowed that penetration of the veil for those things to even begin appearing. Would you agree or disagree with that
I
statement?
agree. I agree 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
It's like it's made known to me in the 3D personality of Delia that I'm choosing a particular polarization because it's going to pull me into that. And therefore, I'm going to see the effect or however you experience it. I do think that the veil can be experienced in all the senses, all through the different senses. Um, it's not just a visual thing.
We're going to get there too. We're stepping right up on it. And this is how the veil, it's not just placed. It's placed in a way that now separates the unconscious from the conscious mind, but it also veils the mind from the body to where the mind or the personality no longer knows the body, knows what it is, what it's capable of, etc. And so we often stop short at the body as just this physical meat body, and we never go any further. Okay, that's the very outside of what the thing is. But to get just internal to it, skipping a lot of layers along the way, uh, our body as a whole contains an energetic system of energy centers,
Yeah.
the seven rays or seven bodies within the body that we know.
Mhm.
And so, yes, the veil can be experienced through each of these in certain ways, but also it's blockages within these energy centers that also have to be cleared through our chosen polarity and actualizing that in certain ways in life are is what the matter or material or actualizations that begin to clear the energy centers to and then to balance them amongst each other. And it's the three lower energy centers that are most associated with our life here in the 3D Earth life,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
They're
The lower three chakras are physical manifested reality, right?
right.
Upper three are what I want to call God worlds or the etheric frequency, and the heart is the bridge.
Yes. So
Yeah.
basic survival mechanisms and personal power and how we're going to utilize that either positively or negatively within ourselves individually one-on-one and ourself in groups, right? All of that comes into play. And you said it right there, the green ray is likely where we begin to most beneficially pierce the veil, as it were. And that's what's going to take us into the higher dimensions. Prior to the veil, the mind knows the body. It knows it inside and out, and it knows its capacities and capabilities, its limits and extents. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Now, when the mind knows the body, again, it can be complacent in the way it utilizes it. It's like anything else that's always there. You sort of begin to take it for granted,
Yeah,
right?
there's what they call the second nature is like, I don't know how it is, just there. Yes, continue.
Yeah. Or again, you just sort of begin, it's not new anymore. It's never been new. And you just sort of did the breath. It's always there. We all take the breath for granted, right? We
Oh my
never dive into what it is or what it can do or where it can take us, right? We don't. And this is another example of why the veil is in place, I think, because before the veil, the knowledge is rather impotent. It doesn't do much. It's not very useful. It's pale in comparison to after the veil, when the mind no longer knows the body. It's now when it's inspired into action, the energy created from that is more intense.
So would you say is that what we actually refer to when we say embodiment? Like true embodiment is the all of it online, mind one with the body.
Well, I think that's something a little different than the veil being in place, and the comparison of what the knowledge or the energy created is without the veil compared to with the veil.
Okay.
Okay, with the veil, okay, so this would be like, okay, you're about to run out of money. But
Uh-huh.
before you were about to run out of money, you weren't really inspired to go work or start making any money to pay your bills. But now you're about to run out. The fire's really lit. You better get moving now or you're going down. You know what I mean? There's more energy, more oomph, more inspiration to go out and do something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that. So before the veil, there's just not the inspiration. You know, what is needed is already there, and you're not making any moves or maneuvers to do anything new or different. However, with the veil, now you are, because now it's gone. You're out of money. You're in that state of not knowing. You have no idea, and so again, now the fire's lit under your butt. So the quality of the energy created from what's actualized after the veil is much more potent, I feel,
I agree.
than what there is prior to the veil. So this is another purpose for the veil. Again, not an evil thing, something one does unto itself, and as above, so below. It's what we do unto ourselves because we have our own personal way we apply that to ourselves, as well as the fundamental way in which it came in. It's just never coming from the outside. It's a choice we ourselves make. And again, if we reel the attention in on ourselves and learn to focus on self, then we begin to see that we're making choices that are resulting in what's happening. Uh, Otherwise, we just never do. We keep, like a teenager, saying somebody else did it to us.
Yeah.
I didn't get myself into this position by the choices that I was making. Somebody else did it to me.
Hmm.
Yes. And it's important to say here that the main choice that we have is whether we're going to experience whatever it is we're going to experience through the lens of love or the lens of fear. That's the principal primary choice we're making. It's not like, we've asked for something horrible to happen to ourselves. We are periodically going to be given catalyst. If we get too complacent and aren't growing, we're either going to be taken out of the incarnation or we're going to be given a catalyst, to get us moving. But if we never let ourselves get complacent to begin with, we're never given those huge catalysts that, would amount to a horrifying event, But essentially, it's that choice. Here comes the awful experience, and your first choice is this a reason to love or a reason to fear? Meaning a reason to go into resistance or a reason to go into love and acceptance. Love and acceptance doesn't mean you accept the horrible thing that might be coming upon you. What is it?
Hmm.
What is it? What is it the acceptance of? It's the acceptance of, here I am.
Yeah. Natural law. I like.
I'm here. This is happening. How
Would
am I going to experience what is happening now?
would you say that that is what simplicity is? This very simple choice of I am in this here now, and it's mine to do it. And I'm at least an equal to it, whatever that adversity or
Mhm.
the complexity. I see when there's victimization and, throwing on the outside and not appropriating and not, being responsible and accountable, that's when it becomes really complex, like complexity that right? And it's like the
Right.
simplicity, like it just is. And then here it is. And then being with things as they are. And also responding.
Mhm.
That's choice. That's when, to me, that's when it becomes the free will.
Yes, love, the choice for love and acceptance is going to immediately align you and connect you with the one. Resistance is going to immediately disconnect you from that. And yes, things will get more complex from there.
Mhm.
Absolutely, in my mind. However, somebody who's negatively polarized may say the opposite. But let's get back, let's shoot back toward the veiling of the mind from the body. So
Yes.
where the mind no longer knows the body, no longer knows what it is, how to utilize it, what it's capable of, where it's possible that the body could take you, such as into an out of body experience. That just seems really interesting to me because so many of us feel that we do know the body, but we only know the body to a certain extent. So why then the veiling of the mind from the body? Why doesn't the veil just stop as it rests between the unconscious and the conscious mind? I would say it's because the one can also be understood to be consciousness, mind, energy, body. Okay, and so just as the veil would rest between the unconscious and the conscious mind, it will also rest between mind and body. Something like that.
I'm gonna have to sit with that. I can pull it out really fast, right? Why
It
would that be? Well, it certainly gets your attention. It's like there's no escaping that when the body comes online.
doesn't it make you want to know the body?
Of course. And I know of the body. So that's the realization also like
Hmm.
and how the brain learns movement, all these things. And I'm like, what's happening? But what is really, really happening? Right. It's
How
like I
does
know about the body, but I don't actually know the body, but I'm learning the body through my body. That's the
Mhm.
only place I'm going to experience that is in here.
Well, and through the combining with other selves. And so here we go with the way that most people here in the 3D Earth life choose to know the body, right? Through sex. And this again takes us to the Greenway Center and Greenway activity. Let me read something here because now we're going to be getting into the penetrating of the veil. The penetration of the veil may be seen to begin to have its roots in the gestation of green ray activity. We're talking about the heart center here. That all compassionate love which demands no return. If this path is followed, the higher energy centers shall be activated and crystallized until the adept is born. Within the adept is the potential for dismantling the veil to a greater or lesser extent, that all may be seen again as one. So this is something that may inspire people. I mean, when you get to the point when you first realize, yeah, I don't really I don't really know my body very well. And again, how most people are tantric in 3D earth space. They want to experience through the front body. Yeah.
Yep.
Not the back body with spirit, but through the front body with other bodies. Yes.
Mhm.
And sexual activity is one
Yes.
of the main ways in which this is going to take place. And one of the main ways in which the energy centers can be cleared, the basic survival thing, the personal power, one-on-one and in groups, and how that power is going to be utilized. That power, that polarity, let's say, is going to be utilized. Is that going to be control over that other one? or a mutual combining. It takes some doing to learn how to open the green ray center and clear it of all its muck, right? But first, you have to know who you are, which polarity you've chosen, and then actualize it through the activity. Yes. And again, this will begin to penetrate the veil.
I I have a lot to say, but I don't think it's going to keep it on point. So yes, I'm gonna.
Well, I didn't choose that for myself. As you know, I went the other way with celibacy and joining myself with what we could call spirit. I went through the back body rather than the front body. However, there's ways in which we can penetrate the veil through all of the energy centers. Yes, the main way I myself did it, because I seem to get to the adept part quite young in my life, is through the awareness center, through the Ajna
Mhm,
chakra, right? And so Chatak is one of the disciplines or practices that took me further through the veil than any other. Of course, the meditative state and the focusing of the attention was critical to focusing the gaze, which is what Chatak is. It's a concentrated gaze. But as you can hold the attention still and the gaze open, and the eyes open, unblinking, uninterruptedly viewing, observing, then you begin to penetrate the veil. You can see space. You can see the particles that compose space. You can see geometric formations. You can see fractal patterns. You can see the centers themselves. The very first thing I started seeing was the Ajna chakra itself. We begin to penetrate the veil. And when you penetrate the veil, you begin seeing that the appearance that seemed to separate us before is not the fundamental reality of all of this. And that's when the oneness of it all is seen again.
mhm,
The oneness is journeying through this multiplicity. Yes, on a
mhm,
trajectory both, out and back into itself. And simultaneously, this is one of the very first things I began seeing. So when I would practice Tratak on a candle flame, for instance,
mhm,
quite rapidly, the entire flame came into view. So not just the physical flame, but the permeable golden glow around the flame, rays of light extending off it. And I could even see into the rays, into these tiny moving, fast moving little particles that were simultaneously moving out and in.
mhm.
Yeah. And that was my representation of the universe and the way it works, of reality and the way it works. Fundamental reality. There's the flame, the permeable glow around the flame, the rays, and the many moving points of light. That would be us in manifest realities, both moving outward and inward toward the flame. And again, simultaneously, there's always new soul, new seed consciousnesses that are wanting to go explore further than they have ever before, into potentially 3D manifest realms, right? And in that, they have to start in 1D, go through 2D, advance through 3D, etc., on their way back in toward the flame, the one, the source and center of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It would hold me still, just transfixed for the longest periods of time. Yeah, and I'm sure in that was a lot of dismantling and restructuring within my own system, clearing of neural pathways, clearing of the energy centers or chakra centers, bringing them into an alignment. In the body, I feel they rest, what would be to us perceptually off center. And this is why the Kundalini doesn't rise. This is why the expanded states do not come. But as you begin to clear these centers and bring them back into a harmonious balance, they come back in towards center. And all centered, now you have that clear pathway for the Kundalini to rise.
It's that's so interesting you saying that because I have the experience of seeing human beings in their etheric state, like with my eyes wide open. And when I was in the middle of a liver cleanse, I saw my own light body, but I could only see half of it. And how, so like, you know how the nadis, right? They're like, oh, you're leaning a particular way. The other side, like the balance, right, was not in balance. And
Yeah.
so what was appearing was just like, this is how much is available to see from that perspective. It's like that channel is clear, you're leaning that way. The other one is stagnant, right? And so, because at first I was like, what, what the F is this? Like, this is new. It's like half egg only, right? And so I was like, what is going on now? Yeah. But the beautiful thing is looking at things that one would consider inanimate objects is it's interesting. Looking at like seeing everything alive and then shifting that gaze. I called it spirit vision, right? Because I didn't know what was called. Like spirit vision is when the veil is so thin and I can put that attention on something and see it with spirit vision.
Hmm.
So then to notice like animals or everything that's alive, right? Like plants, anything in nature, water, anything like that, other people, like that's always wild. And it's actually really beautiful being able to see like just how much is going on in that space.
So this is another thing that people might start wondering, like what can you do with penetrating the veil?
Hmm.
And this is an example of something that you can do. Also, I noticed when I would take my gaze into others, just rest it there where their body seems to be, I began to see through that. Yes, I began to see these snowflake-like patterns uh, just floating through their form, and I could get pulled into them. And I would find myself in an out of body state in a moment in their life experience, either in this incarnation or another associated, where they're still clearing energy from that one due to choices made there. And while I was there, I would be viewing the situation through their eyes. I would be a point of consciousness within their consciousness. And as things were happening, I would observe them as I would. I would think and feel as I would. And they had access to those thoughts and feelings. So they had access to more than they do on their own. And whether they accessed it or not was completely up to them. But I was there for that, to give them access should they choose to access it. And then I would shift back out. But I could also begin to see their people, like faces would begin to come through their faces.
Yeah.
Their higher being, other entities associated with them, other lifetimes, all kinds of things. And I could tell them about them. And in the rare instance where I had the opportunity to do this with a live person and tell them, they always told me that it was completely transformative to them because the situation of it is very tangible.
Mhm.
Like when I begin seeing, it's a tangible thing. That seeing opens out into a space in which they're now sitting in, and they have access to this new way of experiencing themselves as I tell them what I'm seeing. And so, yeah, that can result in healing. We can also see through the physical body into where there's blockages in the body and perhaps utilize certain techniques. Everybody has their own way of doing things,
Yep.
by placing hands on the body or just looking, breaking it up with their consciousness or whatever. So piercing the veil can be utilized in ways like this right here in 3D physical space. So it's not just that it's a phenomenal thing to experience in itself when you begin to see more than what you more regularly do. It's that you can actually utilize that to be helpful to others. So, what is your personal relationship with the veil? When you hear about the veil, how do you immediately feel? What relationship have you chosen to have with that concept, that idea?
Like my relationship with it is something that I nurture and I cultivate. The moving with the veil being there and then in and out of the veil at all times. On the daily.
Do you choose a positive relationship?
I believe that I do. I certainly think that I do.
You've chosen that it's here for you and not against you.
Oh, yes. Now, at this point, yes. But, there was a progression. So at this point, yes.
Tell me about when you felt it wasn't here for you.
Casey, all my life, I felt like I was a very well-intended demon because I knew that I had powers. I knew that I had abilities. And so because I wasn't trained and I didn't have anyone around me to tell me that, based on the culture that was around me,
Mm,
that was something that was reserved, for the witches, for the darker beings, right? And so I needed a new word and a new way of looking at the concept of what darkness is. Like that which is beyond the veil was darkness, right? And
mhm,
so what I felt in myself is like, well, I must be one of those things, right? That there's something wrong with me, but I'm wanting good. I always wanted good. I always wanted to help. I always wanted to, I never wanted to impose. And so that was innately in me. So as I evolved and developed, and I realized that that was me deconstructing the beliefs and the myths around the veil being something that is dark, right? What's beyond the veil is dark. It's only, bad things, even the fear of night or of darkness. And in fact, that's how I work with the veil. I was afraid of darkness constantly. I was afraid of sleeping because even in the darkness of a street or a forest, what was going on inside of me was so much scarier than what I could possibly come across in a dark street at night. The what the beyond the veil wasn't in the street. It wasn't like a human being attacking me, right? It was like, you should see the shit that I'm seeing, and that's way worse, right? Like I'll go in the but I had certain fears of not wanting to be out at night and open, sit with quiet. Quiet was always hard. So that's how I started to work and nurture the veil. And what revealed itself to me is something that I started remembering that as a child, I was seeing that. And so it brought back my spirit vision. And I want to say something here because I thought this was really funny. In a medicine journey with a friend of mine, it was her first time taking medicine. And not only did she say, wait a minute, like, you're in that space where you can see it, but she looked right at me and pointed at my forehead and said, you see with your eyes wide open. And
yeah,
I said, yes,
interesting.
I do. Like, I almost don't need the medicine to have the same patterning of colors, geometries, and auras because it's so easy to drop into it.
Hmm.
Train myself. I would come out camping, come out in the middle of the night, like everything that is fearful here. And what got revealed to me from I'm going to make myself sit here in this open field. I know there's wild animals out here at night. And then this beautiful experience of suddenly nothing changed. The field was there. Everything revealed its etheric self. And I could see the animals that were behind the bushes and the trees and moving through the grass just by their light bodies, I think. The whole frequency washed over me. Everything had to come into this alignment. Right. So teaching them to like come into some sort of like point of stillness into feeling yourself. So I cultivate that. That's my relationship with the veil. There's this other layer of veiling that I feel in OBs where I can see the edge of the space that I'm in the outer body. And I've learned that that edge is actually created by me. Like it'll just be wherever I put it. That's how far I'm willing to see. That's how far I'm willing to reveal to myself. But I'm really curious about how the experience of the veil relates directly with the body, relates directly with the state of the nervous system, because we talked about the nervous system earlier. Is it actually connected?
To the veil?
Yeah.
How would it be? How would the veil connect to the nervous system?
Well, the fear state, that's the edge.
Well, the veil rests above the crown, right? That's why when we're born, babies are born with the soft spot at the top of the head, yes?
Mhm.
So they can still penetrate the veil for a period of time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I would say that it rests above what we would perceptually see as the body or the seven rays that we experience ourselves through. The seventh ray being the culmination of the experience here in 3D. Is there anything else you want to bring up in regard to the veil? We went into what it is, the veiling of the mind from the body, penetrating the veil. Are there any other practices or life experiences that you utilize to penetrate the veil? Is that even a part of your life? Is that something you intentionally open yourself to?
There's a part of the veil that I feel it's my psychology, like the belief systems that I bring in are also what creates a veiling, the mindset that I have,
A
right?
further veiling, absolutely.
Right. So that those are veilings, and they, you notice people talking like we were just talking, this happened to me, like that's a veiling. That's a way of thinking about things that are everything on the outside, right? So I think that it's connected to our psychology and our belief structures, definitely. Um, but I'd like to talk, well, I don't know if there's a way to take this, the electromagnetic frequencies getting scrambled, right? And how that affects both the revelation of the veil, like going beyond it, and also keeping us more veiled.
Yeah, I don't think anything on the outside can do that to us unless we have that written into our code by thinking it so frequently that it's now embedded to a degree that makes that seem a nice solid reality and just how things are. But without sentences like that, without writing those into our code, then there's nothing on the outside there. Well, because there is nothing on the outside. That's the illusion. And so, again, reeling the attention in on self, going in to the self is a different direction than going out more into 3D experience, especially based on incorrect thinking. It's not that there is not the positive and the negative. Again, there are those polarities here. The negative do their work to supply torque that gives us the impetus to be who we are. However, instead, a lot of people's choice is to become like them.
But why? There's a reason for it.
Well, not the why, because that's too complex. Just that's a lot of times the impetus. Somebody hits you, you want to hit them back. Somebody does something negative, you want to make them pay for it. Things like this. So if you're positively oriented and you use the negative torque to be like that rather like than who you actually are, then you depolarize yourself. And yes, depolarizing yourself just digs you a deeper and deeper hole into right here. Life after life after life, incarnation after incarnation after incarnation, until you yourself stop doing that, until you focus on you and grow to be aware of who you are, what your choice was, positive or negative, and then actualize that to where you're more positive than negative. That's what gets us out of here. That's what gets us from the third grade into the fourth.
I'm kind of a firm believer in do no harm, but take no shit. So now that doesn't mean that every time somebody hits me figuratively or, literally that
Yeah,
I'm going to hit back. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a point where I'm going to state my boundaries and make that clear that.
you need to be who you are. So, how would you have to ask yourself, how would I, as a positively oriented individual, address that situation? Use a real example from your life about when a negative action came upon you, where you were able to make a choice of a positive response to it.
Mhm. Yes.
Again, that's what we're intended to do. Seeing the negative is supposed to help us see ourselves,
Yeah.
hyper focus on the other guy to the point that we become like that, right? So again, the attention has to reel in on the self. This is one of the things that the veil lets happen, this play of the forces of light and dark, the play of positive and negative. And again, this is more like a battery than anything else. Okay, the negative being necessary, the negative charge, the positive charge being necessary to create the energy.
Mhm. Sure.
Okay, to further polarize, to further momentum, to further actualize your positive choice. Yes, in the world, so that the world becomes more positive. Yeah, if that's your orientation.
But would that mean, so can I work this out with you?
Yes.
So does that, are you saying then that if only the 3D are veil, that it's only in the 3D that we're doing it that way?
Mhm.
Therefore, let's say trickle or feeding into, or because it's, all in the same through the other layers that are not veiled. So then,
Just the manifest realms, and they're also polarized. They're just not veiled.
got it. Okay. They're also polarized. They're just not veiled. Oh, okay. Got it. Right. Okay.
We are actually them. They fractaled within themselves into what we call us and
Yeah.
veiled themselves here. Again, that's why I say the reason that beings would do that because they're stuck where they are. They can't get the momentum going to further polarize in order to keep growing, to keep graduating back in toward the one. Yeah. So what we call ourself is really something larger that's behind us. And it's not against us.
Yes.
It's done it to itself.
Uh-huh.
We're more like the costume that the actor has put on to
Yeah.
play a part on the stage. We're not the real actor, we're the costume. So, but yes, we have
And
a level of
veil.
reality into ourselves, but that level of reality is behind us. Yeah.
So, but the veil is specific to, let me work this out. So the veiling is custom made for this role. Am I making
For
sense?
3D space and
For
maybe
the three space and like this personality, because I often think about this like, well, if I created myself, why did I create myself this way? Like, why? Like, what about it?
let
Why distinction?
let's be clear, Delia didn't create herself, but
That's right.
the level of beingness behind Delia, again, subdivided, fractaled within itself to create the Delia character
Yes.
placed here in 3D airspace, yes. And it may not be, it may go deeper than that. We have a higher fractal array. It's not just one being who's behind us, it's an array, and that array exists within a seed consciousness, again, that many people call a soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that has done it, yes.
So in my language, that those are stations of identity because they're stationed in a different fractal layer, right? So
Yeah.
then we're together. And it like fun for me in the veiling is like, why this? Like what about this and the way it is so perfect custom made for the whole experience.
Because the one is all there is.
Yeah.
The self is all there is. Consciousness itself is all there is. And again, it fractals or subdivides within itself to create the multiplicity. The whole thing is to bring it into actuality and to physical space
That's a big
here
conversation.
in the world to
Yes, right.
create a collective that is, what you want.
It's a
That is,
self-realization
yeah.
and then self-actualization. It's like, no, we don't stop here. It's like,
Mhm.
and this. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
I'd like to please ask you some questions about the veil and the seven rays or the chakras,
Okay.
basically.
hmm
Would you please expand on that? What I observe is that half and half. Some people are very top heavy, is what I like to call them, and some people are very bottom heavy, right? So I'm top heavy, and then coming in with, bottom heavy. That's why a lot of movement, a lot of physical, a lot of like, working through the what is this? Is what's happening here. But sometimes the top heavy people, they have a really hard time landing it. And so it doesn't make sense. Some people would think that if you don't have the top ones open, then that's what's keeping us from reaching beyond the veil or being able to interact.
Well, let's be clear about something. You can't get into an opening of the upper energy centers without having cleared the lower.
Mhm. Oh, thank you. This is what I was getting at. So please
So
expand on
some people can, no, they carry the ideas in their mind only. They've never actually actualized them. They haven't cleared their lower energy centers to get to where the upper ones are actually open. Yes. So meaning the body has been sequentially cleared that opened them out to that.
that.
So yeah, again, whether the ideas or concepts are in mind only or have been actualized through the body
Mhm.
sequentially to get there are two different scenarios. Yeah, and you have to actually clear them through the body, not just do it in mind only, but through the body, meaning actualize these and clear them through activity in 3D physical space. That's how you get it done.
Can you give an example or a couple, please?
Yes, your life, my life, there's two. And everything you do in it.
Nice try. Yes,
Okay.
everything you do
So
in
at a
it.
certain point, I became a caregiver.
Mhm.
Okay, and what I do through am I going to caregive in a positive fashion or a negative fashion? Am I going to try to control the people I'm taking care of and do things for them? Or am I going to be more positive and to get them on board, to moving toward their own benefit, and I've done both. I learned the hard way. I believe that we all start off negative, not knowing any
I,
better and not knowing who we are and being
I agree.
completely veiled and being in the base mechanism and the root chakra, the basic survival,
Yeah.
live or die, so I think we all start off negative and it takes a while for us to get to the point where we realize there's a choice.
Mhm.
And yeah,
I
begin.
agree with that. This is my whole like, this is why I'm like, oh, I'm a well-intended little demon. Why? Because I do things that were like, like even as a kid, kids are such all about survival and pleasure and like the gimme, 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 gimme.
Yes, it's important to say right here that the difference between the positive and the negative polarity has to do with free will and either infringing upon it and or not, right? So a negative is going to try to control you.
Yes.
A positive isn't going to try to control you. They're going to be who they are as a sovereign individual, understanding that you are as well.
So the one who tries to control, might try to control from like, this is for your own good, it's still leaning
It
negative.
is, it is. Now, it might be in agreement, for instance, a child that comes into a certain parentage who is going to be that way to give it lessons that it needs in order for it to get to where it's going in life. So there can be that involved as well. But yes, you as the individual who is doing that are not going to polarize yourself more in the correct direction for yourself by controlling the other.
Yeah.
There's always a way to engage positively and or negatively.
This is why I will never start a cult. I'm just joking. I'm just saying, if you look at my gene keys, it's like some part of it is like, oh, you have great reach. And I'm like, oh no, I am so concerned with the idea that great reach has such massive responsibility as to not infringe on another. It's like that's my daily life. They're like, hey, I know things, and I think you should know them for yourself. Just because I know them, you don't need to take this on, right?
I totally forced. I mean, that was the biggest thing I had to work on in my incarnation. Yeah, I was fundamentally neutral. I fundamentally always had a strong impetus to help. However, the way in which I did it was negative.
Same.
Yeah. And it's important that when we are doing this to come into the clear awareness of when we're doing it, so that we can back out of it. So we can see there's got to be another way to do this and the benefit of that and all of that.
Yeah, that your life, your way.
Yeah, otherwise we're never going to polarize to a degree that graduates us from the third grade into the fourth. And it's going to be nobody else's doing but our own. It's nobody else. There is only the one. I'm just going to keep repeating that. And as above, so below. I myself am the fundamental reality I am experiencing here. There's nothing outside of it. That's an illusion. And I know we like to think that we're with others, and maybe we are. It's just not something I feel that I could ever prove here in 3D consciousness. So supposedly there's a collective and personal reality, supposedly, but I can only confirm myself in three-dimensional consciousness because that's what I'm experiencing here. It's a
Mhm.
playground. And yeah, we're not going to be unleashed into the actual consensus or collective until we're less harmful, more beneficial.
And see, we arrive at what I said is like, well, there's a negligence levels about us, which is
Right.
why we're like, we had to be like, here, child, you need to stay in your playpen because you might hurt yourself. So unless
Yeah, it's just not why I feel the veil was put in place. The veil wasn't put in place for that reason.
I get it, I get
That's something that happens after the veil's put in place. Then you don't know who you are and you behave in strange ways, right? Before that, you knew exactly who you were, if you were positive or negative, etc.
So tell me something about one that might live beyond the veil in the 3D. Would that be what we call the enlightened beings? The actualized beings would be those that are in the 3D.
They're not in 3D. No, they're not in 3D. We might see them here. They might make themselves apparent to us, but they're not here in 3D.
Mhm.
Once you penetrate the veil, once you graduate, you're in your own dimensional space. However, you have access to all the fields, all the dimensions down below.
Once you penetrate the veil, so once the veil is completely removed, that's what you mean by penetrate the veil fully, not just having the experiences of it flickering, right? Like it's
You would no longer be a 3D consciousness. Once the veil is penetrated, you're 4D and 5D, 6D, etc. It's not like we can't pierce it. We do pierce it.
yeah. I mean,
But there's a dimension outside of where we are now that's not veiled.
mhm,
So we could even say the veil exists between galactic and planetary consciousness,
mhm.
or the veil exists between 4D and 3D. There's a lot of different ways that you could say that. Yes, but once you're in galactic space, once you're in manifest dimensions, 4, 5, or 6, you're no longer veiled.
So let's bring it back to the OBE specific.
Mhm.
The experience of an OBE is a piercing of the veil.
In a sense, it's not an actualizing of it from 3D physical space.
Got it. Yep. Got it.
Yes, but it's an experience, it's a phenomena that will pop up as you are graduating, when you're at the top of that grade and graduating out, that's an experience that begins to come into play, sure.
Mhm.
But what we do with that is completely up to us. Maybe we come back from that and we say, oh, there's evil things out there, and we start behaving negatively in a way that depolarizes us to a degree that the whole thing goes away, and we're squarely back in 3D physical space. I don't know if that can happen. I suspect that by the time the OBE is coming into play, especially when it's coming into play in the way that it did in my life, uh,
Mhm.
not as a singular experience or a collection of a handful of experiences through a lifetime, but rather blunt forcefully for a long period of time. I think by the time you get there, there's probably no going back. But I mean, for most people, I mean, you could really screw it up, I guess, but
I thought about that one time and I was like, yeah, short of like a brick dropping on my head and getting some sort of like massively amnesiac, but that could also kick me into the next level. I don't know. I was like, what would it take? Because because I do very much live in the like, no, once you start to wake up, you actually can't go back to sleep. It's like,
Well, I think you can. Waking up is different than the concept of physically actualizing a graduation from 3D physical space into 4D manifest space, which again is something I feel I'm doing. But waking up is different because there's a variety of different ways you can wake up, right? And the same thing, this in the same way that you can experience the veil and piercing of the veil through any of the seven rays or chakra centers or energy centers of the body, you can also do it differently in terms of waking up. Like, are you just waking up to the drama that's happening here on the planet, or are you waking up to something greater? You know, and so there's various dimensions of that as well. Like, are you waking up in a way that is actually graduating you from 3D Earth space or not?
so where does the veil come in on that gradient? Where does the, piercing the veil come in?
The veil is of self from self.
Got it.
So again, the mind is veiling itself from itself, creating the known and the unknown, the unconscious and the conscious. And so you would have to be coming back into an awareness of yourself, not just here, but on additional dimensional levels, on that subconscious level, for instance, as your higher fractal array, as beyond that is what we would call the unconscious,
Mhm.
universal or cosmic level consciousness.
Yeah, but one could be awake to the,
And begin to see the oneness. So here's the thing that we're waking to, the oneness of all things.
yeah.
Okay, because that's the self. The oneness is the self, is consciousness itself.
Mhm.
So that's what we're waking up to. Some people will first, I did first, wake up to the dream.
Yeah,
You
same.
know, wake up to the fact that even here,
Yeah.
I'm dreaming. Now, this adds a different level, to that whole concept because I, of course, am the embodiment here. So Casey, did not dream Casey. So who did? You begin to inquire into the depths of what's behind you.